Okay, and we're recording. So, welcome everyone. My name is Scott Carey. I'm the Chief Engineer of Applications and Customer Support at Sugars International. And today, also with us, we have Sally Wallace, who is the President of Sugars International. Sally, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself any more than that.
I don't need to say much, but good morning, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. This is a momentous day for all of us here on the Sugars team, so we're really excited that we had so many participants join us. So we're just looking forward to sharing all of this with you.
Okay, thanks, Sally. And we'll hear a little more from Sally toward the end of our presentation today. She's got some comments. So, the point of or purpose of our meeting today is really to introduce everyone to Sugars 4.1 and talk about some of the changes and the new features and let everyone or get everyone up to speed on what we've accomplished. We're pretty proud of it. So I'll go ahead and jump right in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see what we're talking about. Okay, so hopefully you can see what appears to be a multiple effect evaporator train right now on the screen. So the first thing I want to mention is for those who are new to Sugars, Sugars is a mass and energy balance software tool developed specifically for the sugar industry. So it is built to basically describe sugar processing equipment and perform the mass and energy balance calculations for equipment sizing and design, operator training, optimization calculations. There's lots of applications. It works within Microsoft Visio, so you draw your process flow diagram within Visio using Sugars station shapes, such as these evaporators and tanks here you can see. And then you connect them with flow stream connectors, which are what you're seeing are the lines here. And that's how you describe the process when you build a Sugars simulation model. And then once you've built the model, you can you set up all the parameters. So for instance, in an evaporator, we have a list of parameters we can set. And also for flow streams coming into the model, we tell the model what we're putting into the process. And then you click the balance button, and the model balances. It calculates all the results, and then they're displayed on the model. So that's what Sugars is to anyone who's new to the program. Over the years, of course, Sugars has evolved with the times. It was originally, I believe, an MS-DOS program that was all text-based. And then maybe 20 years ago or so, it was integrated into Microsoft Visio, so it became a graphical program. And now, of course, as Visio has been updated and upgraded, as well as the Windows operating system has changed over the years, we decided that Sugars really needed to be modernized. So what Sugars 4.1 really does is updates all the VB code within Sugars to the new Microsoft.NET platform. And that's really, all that code is really everything that sits between the very core math functions of Sugars, which really haven't changed very much in 4.1. Most of that is all the same that you've been using for many years, and that we know is very good, solid, correct calculations. But everything between there and the interface with Visio and the forms that you enter data into and things like that, all that has been updated to the latest and greatest programming languages so that we can remain compatible going forward with the new versions of Windows that come out and the updates to Visio and all that. So along those lines, the first specific thing I want to mention is that Sugars 4.1 it's no longer compatible with Microsoft Visio 2013, which is what our older version of Sugars was running in. But now I'll show you here. So for instance, what I'm running is the Microsoft Visio. This says Plan 2 because this is part of the Office 365 plan. And that's kind of what we recommend that most folks do for their Visio installation now, to use Sugars 4.1, because of course with a subscription to Microsoft 365 and the Visio portion of that subscription, you will be able to maintain all the updates and all the support from Microsoft as long as you maintain that subscription. Now, you can also purchase Visio as a standalone license, and I believe Visio 2019 is the version they're marketing right now. And Sugars 4.1 is compatible with that also. One thing that I do want to mention and make clear is that currently, the current release of Sugars 4.1 is only compatible with 32-bit versions of Microsoft Visio. We are working and in the testing phases of another release that should be out within a few months that will update that and will allow us to be compatible with 64-bit versions of Microsoft Visio. But for right now, at this moment, you'll want to install a 32-bit version. Oh, and by the way, I didn't mention earlier, if you have any questions as we go, please type them in the chat function, and we'll address questions at the end of the session. Okay, so of course, with any software update, we've addressed some minor bugs and stability issues that Sugars has. We spent, this update took a lot of time and effort, and we spent a lot of time testing and retesting, and so we were able to iron out a lot of different little issues, things that you may or may not have ever experienced, because some of them were pretty deep within the program. But that's not to say that there aren't a few left out there, but we believe we've gotten the vast majority of them covered. One thing that's also a good point to mention is in the evaporator station. We've updated to a new boiling point elevation calculation using the Sugar Technologist Manual 8th edition. So that you'll notice if you update a model from 3.9 to 4.1 and rerun it with evaporator stations, you might see some slight changes in boiling point elevation results. That's one of the only things in the core math, the core balance calculations that changed within Sugars. Another thing that we did, most of you, or some of you may be aware that for a while, for the past few years, we were requiring a hardware key driver update and a patch file in order to run through Sugars 3.9. That has all been integrated now into the installation package for Sugars 4.1. So when you install Sugars 4.1, it already contains the updates and the correct files required to use the hardware key. Okay, so that's some of the less exciting stuff. Now I want to get into some of the slightly more interesting things that we've updated and features that you're going to see when you run Sugars. The first one, I'll just open this evaporator properties form here again. And this is, it's a small thing, but I think it's actually very useful. You'll notice that in the evaporator, there are multiple different selections for the specification of that evaporator. You can either specify the heat transfer coefficient, the vapor pressure, or the temperature of the vapor flowing out of the evaporator. And this has been the case for many years. What's new is the fact that even when you select one of these options, the value for the other options is shown in light gray in the form field. So this is really helpful because if you, let's say you've been running the balance with the coefficient option and you decide you want to change the option to look at the outlet vapor pressure, then you have a starting point to begin with here, and you know where you are before you change that value, versus it being blank and just having to kind of guess where you need that value to be, or having to cancel out of the form and go back and look at the pressure that it was actually running in that flow stream. Click the flow stream there. Oop. Let me get the flow stream, maybe if I zoom in. There we go. Uh, so that's a helpful addition. Again, not a major change, but just a little something to help every day using the program. Another thing that is important, I think, that will help a lot of people is I'm going to bring up the help files here. So the sugars help files have always been one of the most thorough and all-encompassing help systems that I've ever worked with. But one thing we've added for this version is if you look under the menu tree here, there's a section called stencils. And if you select station groupings, now we have a very detailed and descriptive help file for each station grouping in the stencils. So station groupings are simply uh, a drawing of a piece of equipment that combines several sugars process stations into one unit and then allows you to model that unit as a combination. And they save some time in both drawing the diagram and configuring things. But up to now, we didn't have any help files specifying how to configure those individual stations within the grouping and giving examples of how they run. But now you'll notice for each stencil, the equipment beat, equipment cane, and the miscellaneous, we have a detailed help file for each one. So for instance, if I click on kiln here, I get a diagram with some labels for what each station in the grouping is doing, and then examples showing how you might set up the properties for each station within that grouping. And of course, you can adjust these depending on your specific process and how it operates. But this gives you a good starting point. And just so everyone's aware, going back to Visio, those those stencils for station groupings. So here under equipment miscellaneous, here's all those shapes where you would find them in the stencils. We also have, of course, the equipment beat and the equipment cane. So that's where you find those, and now they all have their own help file, which I think will help a lot of folks. Okay, getting on to even bigger things. So Sugars for a while has had the ability to import and export XML data files that uh, allow you to transfer the information from a sugars model out to a third-party application that can read, if it's set up to read XML files, and vice versa. You could import XML data from a third-party application, and that's using this form that I've just opened up here. And when you do it, of course, exporting data just creates that XML data file. But if you import data, then you can set a tolerance for how much you're willing to allow variables to change without a warning. And then you can get reports showing how much the differences are between those values. And again, this feature has been available as an option in Sugars for a number of years. What we have done with Sugars 4.1 is added a new feature where you'll see under this add/edit automation. This allows you to set Sugars up to automatically import an XML data file, run the balance, save the model, and export the results of that balance to a new XML data file, and do all of that automatically. So if you turn this radio button here to enabled to on, then the next time this Sugars model opens, it will automatically import the specified XML file that you give it right here. So you just use a file browser to enter the information there, but we don't need to right now. And then when the balance is complete, it will export a different XML file, and again, see how it says a different name, and that will have the results of the balance in it. And the idea here, and I just gave a paper at the ASSBT meeting virtually here the other day on this, but the idea is that if you have a factory operating report that has the information about how much you've processed and what the conditions were, what the quality of your input material, be it beet or cane, was, then you can enter that in this, or set up a program to write this XML file as inputs to the Sugars model. and then automatically sugars runs and exports the results. And then you have basically a theoretical balance to say, well, based on the input parameters that I had today for my factory, or maybe this week or this month, then I expect these outputs to be achieved based on the sugars model balance of my factory. And then you can compare that output XML file to the actual results and see how much difference there might be. And that will help you identify things like whether there's measurement errors, be it instrumentation or perhaps laboratory sampling problems, or you might just see ways to optimize the process. If perhaps your sugar crystallization rate is not what you expect it to be based on the model, then you can go out and see, well, what's the problem? Do we have a plugged up heat transfer surface or something that's causing us to be running slower than we think we should? So this, I think, is a valuable new tool. And again, the great thing about it is it allows it to be automated, so it doesn't require a person to open sugars and manually import and export those XML files each time. If you set up perhaps Windows Task Scheduler to just automatically run the sugars model once a week or something, you can have this whole operation happening automatically. So that's definitely an exciting new addition that we worked on a lot, and we'll be hopefully even expanding a little more on that to some different ideas that we have in the future. And the last major thing I want to show you, and I'll actually do a little demonstration on how to use it here momentarily, but for those that may not be aware, when you run sugars, you should always run Visio in developer mode, which gives you this developer tab up here at the top. And that allows you to click on this button called Show Shape Sheet. So I'm just going to click a flow stream here, this one in between first effect and second effect evaporator. And I'll click Show the Shape Sheet. And Visio pops up with a window at the bottom here that shows a whole list of parameters. And not all of them are sugars related, but this section called Shape Data are all a list of sugars parameters associated with that object, in this case, that flow stream that I had selected. And the new thing for sugars 4.1 that I wanted to point out here is this last one on the list. It's called density. This is new. We did not have the density parameter in the sugars shape sheet, or excuse me, the Visio shape sheet for sugars prior to sugars 4.1. Now, what does that do for us? How is that useful? Well, let me show you. I'm going to go ahead and close that shape sheet again, but just remember the property was called density. Now, a while back, we did a webinar explaining how to add custom parameters to the screen on a sugars diagram. Well, one thing that you may know is that the flow legends in sugars are currently, if I double click this one, I have an option for volumetric flow rate here, flow rate by volume, but I don't have an option of what those units are going to be. So in this case, we're using SI units, so I believe it's going to be cubic meters per hour. That's the kind of the hard-coded volume flow rate for sugars when you show it on the flow legend. But what if I wanted to see liters per minute? I don't have a way to do that automatically here, but now with the density feature, that gives me a new way to do that. So let me show you how that would be done. I'm going to go to the text tool, and I'm just going to add a text box here underneath the flow stream. Okay, and I'll right click in it, and I'll go to Insert Field. All right, and then I'm going to go and add a custom formula here. And there's a special format, a special syntax that you use to reference sugars shape properties. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that now. If you do want to really go in depth with that, I encourage you to go to our YouTube channel, because we do have a previous webinar where that's covered in detail. But for now, I'm going to use the reference for this flow stream that goes between the first and second effect evaporators. So this would be FR510 _0 dot flow rate. Okay, that will get us the flow rate in kilograms per hour of that flow stream. And now if I wanted the units of the flow to be in liters per minute, first thing I need to do is divide by 60 to get into kilograms per minute. And then I need to divide by the density in kilograms per liter. So FR 510 underscore 0. And this is where I'm going to use that density property. So if I've done this correctly, I have the flow rate in kilograms per hour. I've divided by 60 minutes per hour to get my flow rate in kilograms per minute. And then I've divided by the density to get my flow rate in liters per kilogram, or excuse me, liters per minute. So let's change the data format. Number, okay. And I may have done that. Let's see, did I need to multiply that? So I'm in kilograms per minute. No, that should be it. Seems like a low number, but in any case, that allows you also, if you're in US units, to change to perhaps gallons per minute or any of those other volumetric flow units. You can calculate them using that density. So let me show you again under developer, show the shape sheet. Oops, I was clicked on the text field. Hang on just a second. Whatever item you have selected, it will show the shape sheet. In that case, I was selecting on that text field. So let me switch to the flow stream. Again, show the shape sheet. And there it is. So the density, oh, it's in kilograms per cubic meter. I'm sorry. So that's why we came out with such a low number here. So I need to multiply by 1,000. Insert field. Oops, times 1,000. And that would be the correct flow in liters per minute. So again, hopefully that's helpful for folks who want to show different volumetric flow units or do any other calculations with the density that you might want. That density is now part of the Visio shape sheet for a sugars flow stream, and that's new with sugars 4.1. Okay, I did see one question come in. Chris Mayhew asks, is the automation function still an add-on option for the new version? And the current answer to that question is yes. I think Sally may address here in just a few minutes some of the changes to, or potential future changes to licensing that we're looking at. But for right now, I believe we're maintaining the XML import-export feature as an add-on. So if you don't have that functionality on your license and you would like it, you can purchase that at any time, and we can add that to your license. Just let us know. So yeah, any other questions about the new features, the changes to Sugars 4.1? We do have another video available for installation and upgrading your models. I do want to mention that briefly. You will have to go through a one-time upgrade process. We have a utility. It's called the model scrubber. I'll show it to you here briefly. If you go in your sugars, utilities folder, the model scrubber, it's just a quick little utility that you add your model files to it, select a backup folder because it will save a backup of your model before it updates it, and then it's called scrubbing because it has to remove some old VBA code. So you get your models scrubbed before you can run them in Sugars 4.1. So, but all that's detailed in another video that we created that's available. We also have it in writing in the installation instructions for Sugars 4.1. So again, any other questions about the new features, changes, updates to Sugars 4.1? Okay, I guess if you do have any other questions, go ahead and enter those while I'll let Sally go ahead and talk about some of the future things to come. with sugars, and then we'll open it up one more time for questions at the very end. So
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm going to go
Yeah.
ahead and stop sharing my screen so you can be front and center, Sally.
Oh, thanks. So thank you again to everybody for coming today. You know, for many of you, you've been involved in sugars and know way more about it than I do. You know the history, you know about the times that there were some major upgrades to the software. Um, and so I'm so grateful for that continued partnership. We, as the Sugars team, took on a lot, and we are very excited about this change to sugars. We really do believe that it is engineered for a successful tomorrow. So we're looking forward, and we are so excited about what this new change brings. This allows us to really start to focus on all of the features and the program enhancements that are so important to you, the user. So your feedback is so valuable. I can't express enough that we want to hear from you. We want to know any of the areas that have been frustrating or areas, your best wishes that you want to see sugars be able to accomplish. So now that we've invested all of this, we can move on to the fun stuff. And so some of the things that we're looking at for the future, Scott mentioned one, it's currently in some of the final stages of testing, is that compatibility with the 64-bit Visio, which we know for a lot of you is going to be important. And so we really wanted to make that a priority. The other thing that will be a major change for sugars is going to be our new licensing system. We are going to be able to have so much more flexibility on supporting you as a customer with licensing and any changes you want to your license, and for the buyer, just many more opportunities for buyers to purchase sugars. So that will be the next big change and big update that you will see coming out soon. And we're hoping that's within the next few months. We are in the testing phases of that as well. So a lot of work has been done. And I can't thank the Sugars team enough. Scott for his expertise and helping guide this, all of our beta testers for making sure that what we sent to you was a really solid version. We're very grateful to everybody. So ask those questions, share those dreams, and then we just look forward to a successful tomorrow. So thank you for joining us.
Okay, yeah, so we'll open it up one more time here for any questions you have. Go ahead and either type them in, or now I think now is a good time. We can go ahead and unmute everyone. So, or actually, I'll just ask you to unmute yourself if you would like to just speak up, um, so that we hear your voice. Uh,
Good morning, everyone. This is Fikadu from Louisiana Sugarcane. I'm glad you changed the evaporation station, and you should be working with a boiling point of elevation calculation, especially after the second vessels. I will see that one. The other question is, the key when I put it, it doesn't come out the power, but it's working. So that's, for me, is new. So old version is the key should be on. So what is this difference? Maybe, I don't know, my computer is, it doesn't come the power on, but it work. But the old version one, 2013 or 2003, the key is the power on. So maybe I'm wrong, or that's a quick question.
no, I think Vic, that's probably some situation with your PC that's different, but obviously the key, or I mean, the important thing is that it's working, so that you can still use sugars. Um, but I will tell you that in our testing, the key stays on even with the new version. So perhaps there's some change in your operating system, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. The little light is really just an indication that it's plugged in fully. But if it's working and you're able to use sugars, then I would say that's the important part. Thanks for your question and your comments, Vic. And one more thing I want to mention on the evaporator boiling point rise. We do have some, and this is pretty distant future, but we do have on our list of development to add the ability to enter the liquid depth of an evaporator, so that then we can account for the static head boiling point rise if the liquid is leaving from a point at the lower part of that depth than the surface of the evaporation, which would be a different temperature. We do want to be able to account for that, but that's coming in a future release, probably in a couple of years.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Vic. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, with that, I think we'll wrap it up. Unless Sally, you have any final comments?
I don't. I just, again, feel free to email, reach out in any way. We love hearing from you. Your feedback is very valuable. So I just cannot reiterate that enough. And it does look like we have one additional chat.
Yeah, I just saw one more question pop up. I assume you will do the same on the evaporator for wetting rates on falling films. That's a good question. That would be yet another good thing to add. But that one's, it's not on our list at the moment, but I think it deserves to be there. So I appreciate that feedback, and we'll work on that as well in the kind of the midterm to long-term development list. Okay, well, everyone, thank you so much. Like I said, this video will be available on our YouTube channel for those that weren't able to attend. Probably it might be Monday before we get this posted, but always we appreciate you as customers and users of Sugars, and thanks for your time today. And we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
All right, goodbye.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye-bye.